All right, you guys, we have talked about how many hours you're going to dedicate, how many appointments you're going to do each and every week. And now we are going to talk about how you're actually going to learn to set up those appointments like a rock star, because we want you owning your day and being successful. All right, so let's get into it. So first of all, let's talk about why people don't set up appointments, okay? First off is a lot of times people really just genuinely have no interest in your product. And when I see that, I really just think, hey, listen, let's make sure we're staying in our target market. If you're talking to an 18-year-old who is a guy, he may not be within your target market. So make sure that we're really talking to people who will have a genuine interest in our product. Okay. There are some people who don't set up appointments because they know they are so interested in your product. So they kind of avoid it because they know they're going to spend money, right? So what we need to do in those situations is make sure that we're establishing trust so that you will tell them, hey, listen, you tell me how much you need to stay within, and I'll make sure to keep you at that, and we'll get you the things that you need. So build that a trust and establish that trust that they know, like, hey, this is a safe environment for me, and I can sit in an appointment and I know that they're going to keep me in budget, okay? The next thing is, to make sure here that a lot of people, they just really don't do business with people that they know. So this is where we need to make sure we remove pressure and say, listen, hey, listen, if this isn't something you want, that's okay with me, no big deal, right? So we have to give people an out. Also, a lot of times people just truly have no idea that the way you run your business is by setting up appointments. So don't assume that people know you set up appointments. Make sure you're inviting them and you're giving an agenda of what you guys are going to talk about or what an appointment looks like so that they can make that choice. Don't assume people already know. The other reason is they aren't your neighbor. I know here in Southern California, to go 10 miles could take you an hour. So a lot of times people want to know that there's an option on the internet or over the phone that they can still set an appointment with you even if they're not your neighbor. So, I know for me, I have tons of people that I know where I grew up in South Carolina. So I also want to make sure that they know I'll set up appointments with them because I want to make sure they're still getting these resources into their home. It's also true that people are truly busy. Even if it's not anything we would consider a legitimate way to be busy, they could be busy scrolling through Facebook. They could be busy just like hanging out at their kids' school, just roaming the halls. So we need to make sure that we offer 2 options for them to set an appointment time with us within 3 days of when we're talking to them. It's ideal if we can do it within 3 days because most of the time people know their schedule and what it's going to look like. They have that pretty locked in within the next 3 days. So if we offer 2 options, preferably within 3 days, we're going to have a pretty good chance of setting up an appointment with someone who really wants one, okay? A lot of people truly don't even know what an appointment entails. So if that word appointment makes people nervous, okay, then we can use different wording. We can always give a time frame like, hey, listen, this is only going to take 30 to 40 minutes. And you don't have to buy anything if you don't want to. But of course, if you see something you like, then I'll help hook you up, right? So we want to make sure that we are letting people know what's actually going to happen in an appointment. And then this tended to be my biggest problem is that I really lacked the discipline to make the appointment. I was so busy. If I was sitting at soccer practice or if I was, in the grocery store or at, a massage appointment or something or a hair appointment, they're like, oh goodness, you smell good. Or, how is this? And I just start in my whole spiel about what essential oils are and what they do and blah, 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 right? That selling on the fly, that's really not professional. And it's also not creating an environment where you can find out a lot about them to know how you can best serve them to meet their needs. And that's how we need to come across to people. So in order to keep us professional, it's really a good idea if when people are genuinely interested, we say, well, usually what I do is just set up an appointment and that'll be a time that we can go over, and I'm going to give you some examples today of what you're going to say. But what I love about that is that, that's dedicating a time that says, hey, you're important enough to me that I'm going to make sure that I have complete focused time just for you and your needs, and we'll go through the things that are important to you. So I make sure that I'm there, fully attentive to serve you at that time. Now, of course, there's going to be situations where at soccer practice, their kids playing and they have a full hour locked in that they don't have anything else going on. And if they give you that permission that now is a really good time, always be prepared to serve in those situations as well. So you may be looking at this, and I love for people to identify which of these really do you feel like is holding you back from setting up appointments. And then just make the little tweak to make sure that it happens. All right. So things to include when you're setting up appointments, right? You can tell people, hey, listen, I'm new to setting up appointments and I'm practicing. So make sure that you're honest and transparent, because what that does is it puts you out of this like salesperson zone and puts you into the friend zone where they're like, oh yeah, no, that's cool. You don't have to know everything. Like, perfect. We can set up an appointment. And even if you're practicing with someone, it's awesome to just let people know you're new. And if you're in your first year, you're really still new to setting up appointments. So you can use this as a go-to. All right. Set a time frame and the things you plan to cover. A lot of times people are worried about how long it's going to take and they want to know what you're going to talk about. Remove pressure. So we always want to, we really put ourselves, a lot of the fears people have when they come in here is that, oh my goodness, I don't want to bug my friends. I don't want to bug my family. I don't want to be that person. Well, of course, nobody wants to be that person. So if you give people an out, that puts the ball in their court to make the decision if it's a good fit or not. Again, using the choice of 2 times, when is a good time for you, is just a bad question. If you open it up that much, people really don't know when a good time is for them. Probably never, because they're always going to find some reason of something else they need to do. So science has shown us that if we give 2 options, people are more likely to make a decision and to commit and stay committed to the appointment time that they set. Okay? Always ask no questions, right? We tend to do that, right? Where people have a tendency to say no on their first, like, hey, is this a good time for you? No. But what if you switch that around and say, hey, is this a bad time for you to talk? No. Well, that gives you a totally different outcome, right? So that's what's a good example of using no questions. So, hey, is Friday too soon for us to schedule an appointment? No, right? Because their tendency is to say no. So just change your verbiage to make those questions work for you. So you can look at this and say, hey, that tip, like, ooh, that's a key takeaway. That's something I need to tweak. All right, let's get into the verbiage that we need to set up appointments. Now, when we're looking at the appointments, we kind of looked and saw how are we going to spend our time, what should those appointments be? And the 3 primary ones we're going to focus on is the intro to oils, right? That follow-up appointment where we're going over their wholesale account and their products. And then the 3rd appointment, which is our business conversation, where we're talking to people about the business. So I'm going to go through 3 examples of how you can invite people to set up an appointment for those specific areas. So here's the verbiage to set up an intro to oils appointment. Hey, what do you already know about essential oils? Well, what I usually do is set up an appointment to go over your specific health goals, a little about how they work, and the most popular kits. My part takes about 30 to 40 minutes. You don't have to buy anything, but if you see something you like, of course, I'll help you order it. Is that something you'd be open to? Let's say they say, yeah, sure. Okay, great. We can meet tomorrow at 12 or Tuesday in the evening after dinner, which is best for you, right? So you see how we're going in, we're transitioning from our conversation into an essential oils discussion. We're letting them know the agenda, everything we're going to cover. We're giving them a time frame so they know how long they need to set aside for the appointment. You're going to take pressure off by saying they don't have to buy anything, but of course, giving them an outlet if they do, feeling them out. Like, hey, are they on board for this? Do they want to? And if they say yes, then giving them a choice of 2 times to meet. Okay? Now let's look at our verbiage to set up a follow-up appointment. Okay? I want to make sure you know exactly how to order your products on your own and get as much free stuff as possible. The next step would be to set up a quick call to make a wish list for yourself, show you how to order, and give you the best tips and tricks on how to get the most product for free. There's kind of an art to it. My part takes about 30 to 40 minutes. The goal will be for you to be able to order on your own anytime you want to. How does that sound to you? And then they say, oh, wow, that'd be really helpful. Okay, great. We can meet tomorrow at 12 or Tuesday in the evening after dinner, which is better for you. So you'll see the exact same flow of information is taking place as you're going to go through each of these 3 appointment setting verbiage. And you can take this, and I think it's simple enough to just use as is, but if there's something that doesn't feel comfortable to you in it, you can adjust it a little bit. But I really recommend that you leave in all the pieces because there's a reason that they're there. So one thing that's really interesting here too is that this appointment, the setting up this appointment should take place right at the end of your intro class or your intro 101. So we want to make sure we're setting up this time with people while we have them with us. So we're always setting up the next appointment, okay? And while they're sitting there in front of you, it's so easy to just utilize this verbiage to go ahead and set the next appointment. Okay, now let's talk about how we move into the 3rd appointment setting, which is, again, those income-producing activities of setting up a time to go through the business opportunity. Okay, this is good. I don't want to make assumptions, so I'm just going to ask, would you like to learn how to make money with doTERRA? Okay, great. What I usually do is set up an appointment to go over what you would want to get out of it, what you need to do, how our compensation plan works, and what it takes to get started. We should plan about an hour, but we could finish sooner. If you want to move forward, I'll help you with that. But if not, no big deal. At least you will have made the most informed decision. How does that sound to you? Great. We can meet tomorrow at 12 or Tuesday in the evening after dinner. Which is best for you? So just so you guys know, a lot of times the biggest thing I see about people and appointments with the business is the reason that they don't have very many is because they're not asking for the appointment, right? So I don't make any assumptions about if this would be a business opportunity someone would want or if not. I always extend the invitation to every single person that I enroll with a wholesale account because I'm not there to make the decision for them, right? I want to give them the information and the opportunity to make their own decision. And I'm not tied to the outcome, right? I'm simply there to serve them in the best way possible. So I need to know if they need service in this area. Okay, so let's move on to giving you some tips for a successful appointment. Again, try to schedule it within the next 3 days because they usually have their agenda and their calendar locked in. Ask them to write it down or put it in their phone. Do you know that people are more likely to remember and commit to something when they write it down themselves? That's why even going through this, I hope you guys are taking notes because when you write it down, it's helping to lock it into memory and it's helping you to be more committed to doing it. So when you're sitting with someone and you're making an appointment, pull out your phone and say, hey, why don't you go ahead and put this in your phone? And that way we know we're on the same page. Or a lot of times when I say that, people are like, oh, I'm so old school. I use that planner. And so I'll just say, oh, no big deal. Like pull out your planner and I'll put it in my phone so I know we're on the same page. Another thing is we can ask if somebody is not our neighbor or doesn't want to meet in person, we can say, hey, would you prefer to use like a Zoom or a Skype or FaceTime session and do it online? Or would you prefer me to call you by phone? Because we need to lock in, again, the details of how things are going to be so that it helps them lock into memory and be willing to get on and stay consistent with the appointment they set. This is one of my favorite things that I do all the time. And for me, this has helped me to create a lot of success in having appointments. And it does require a little extra on our part, but it makes it very difficult for people to say no or to cancel on you. So you can ask a question about the upcoming visit that helps it to really stick in their brain. So you can say, hey, listen, what I'll do is I will just pick up a Starbucks. I'll pick us up a drink on the way over. What's your favorite drink? I'll pick us up something and then I'll bring it right to your house. What's the closest Starbucks by your house? Or what's your favorite drink that you'd like me to pick up there? Or could I grab lunch for us? if that's something that you want to do. So again, they're more likely to commit and stick to their appointment time. The other thing you could say is like, oh, listen, I'm not really familiar with your area. So can you tell me where you'd like me to park? Where's the best place for me to park when I come over for the appointment on Tuesday? Right? So getting those little extra details, again, help it to lock it in their brain. So in your own phone, make sure you're reminding yourself to remind them the day of the appointment. Now, so many times what I see people do is like, hey, are we still on for tomorrow? Do not do that. Don't give them an out. Instead, say something like, listen, I'm so excited to see you tomorrow. I'm going to get that refresher that you want from Starbucks, and I'll be over around 11 a.m. So we're going to tie it into something specific that we have talked about with that individual and talk about how excited we are for seeing them at the appointment. So one of the assignments I want you guys to have today is we have to treat our business like a business if we want it to pay like a business. If we're treating it like a hobby, we're not going to make much money. We're probably just going to be spending money. So it's really important for you guys to start implementing these things. So again, we're going to identify what's our successful week going to look like. And every Monday, I recommend you outline this. How many intro to oils classes? If you prefer to do it on Sunday, that's fine. How many intro to oils classes am I going to have this week? How many follow-ups am I doing? How many business overviews am I doing, right? And then how many coaching calls for myself or my team? And remember, we don't want that to take over our whole week and all of our hours, because our income producing activities are going to fall in the top 3, even though we also need some training and coaching ourselves. But make sure that you are outlining these ideas on a weekly basis to say what is going to make my week successful this week, and that you stick to that, and you know how many appointments you need to have. What you'll realize also is that with offering 2 times, it requires you to get organized to know what 2 times do you have available. When is your available allocated times for doTERRA meetings, so that you know what times and dates to offer, okay? And then lastly, one of my biggest pieces is that we take action. Do you know that none of this is going to stick? None of this is going to be fruitful if you don't go and do it. And the best way to learn is by doing. It may not be perfect at first. You might screw up. But the cool part is that you're going to get better every time you do it. So the more you do it, the more perfected you're going to get in the skill of making appointments. So we encourage you to do it and do it and do it again. And we hope that you have your successful week.